have the honor of introducing the Honorable Lashrecse L. Delegate L was sworn in January 2016 to represent the people of the 63rd House District, which includes all of the city of Petersburg, Dinwiddie County, and parts of Chesterfield County. She holds the special distinction of being the youngest woman ever elected to the Virginia House of Delegates. Congratulations, Delegate L. She serves on the General Laws, Health, Welfare, and Institutions Committees and Appropriation. Out of session, she serves on the joint subcommittees on tax preferences and local governments in fiscal distress. She is recently appointed to the Virginia Tobacco Region Revitalization Commission, which awards grants that supports job creation, education, and a variety of projects in tobacco-dependent communities. Delegate L's service is guided by her allegiance to the citizens she represents and her devotion to improving their quality of life. In her first 2 legislative terms, she has placed a significant emphasis on improving education, K through 12, and higher education, workforce development, and economic and social justice. Delegate L's professional life reflects her conviction that the struggle for equality begins with political freedom and education. Working side by side with the president as chief of staff and as member of the executive leadership team at Richard Bland College of William and Mary, she helps today's students become tomorrow's leaders. Delegate L earned her undergraduate degree from Virginia State University in 2008. She is a graduate of the University of Virginia's Sorensen Political Leadership Program, a graduate of the American Council on Education, Virginia Network for Women in Higher Education Senior Leadership Seminar, and a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University's Minority Political Leadership Institute. Additionally, she was awarded an honorary doctorate of humane letters from Virginia State University in 2019 and was a part of Governing Magazine's Women in Government class of 2019. She is a current 2020 fellow of the Bertelsmann Foundation Congressional European Parliament Initiative. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Honorable Delegate Lashrecse L.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bowers. To Dr. Lucas, members of the Policy Pathways Board of Directors, the 2021 cohorts, and all other special guests, good afternoon. I want to thank you for that kind introduction, and I want to especially offer my gratitude to Dr. Lucas for the invitation to participate in today's opening ceremony. The Policy Pathway Summer Academy is truly a unique program. And honestly, and I've shared this with Dr. Lucas before, I wish I had the privilege to participate in a program such as this early on in my political journey. Having been sworn in back in 2016, beginning my journey towards elected office in my late 20s, I can only imagine the impact and preparation I would have had with this type of experience. And to the 2021 cohorts, I know from reviewing the curriculum personally and just hearing some of it reiterated by Dr. Lucas and her comments, that if you're here today, you are extremely fortunate and will be equipped for so much at the conclusion of this program, much like you've heard from Mr. James already. Today, that is where I plan to focus some of my remarks. To the 2021 cohort, putting you in a place of mind to think about where you will go from here and how you will use this experience to elevate your own voice and impact decision-making. Although I'm saying where you'll go from here and how you will do that, honestly, in my opinion, the truth of the matter is that when I look throughout history and when I look around at present day, the voices of our youth have been elevated, they have been influential, and they truly have already led to some of the greatest movements and impacted some of our greatest policies, both in this country and around the world. While so much has changed specifically here in our country over the last 10 years, including some of the social issues that have made their way front and center onto the world stage, in many of these instances, the voices of young people are the loudest and the most passionate. That's nothing new. Young people have been at the forefront of social justice activism for decades in the United States and around the world. And their presence wasn't because someone decided to elevate their voice or to give them permission to act. And if the youth of today, myself, yourself, us, want to continue to build upon this presence, there is much work to do. But to put this conversation into full context, let me offer a few examples. Perhaps you are aware that the lunch counter sit-ins that would change American history began with 4 teenagers who walked up to a Woolworth's lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, and refused to leave. Those young men, 18, 19, 17, and 18, were all students at North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. They made their first stand on February 1st, 1960. And within 3 days, they were joined by some 300 others. And by summer, the sit-ins had spread to more than 50 cities, and lunch counters were rapidly desegregating around the country, a policy change. Or maybe you know about several thousand students near Johannesburg on June 16th, 1976, and that they began a peaceful march that unfortunately turned deadly when the police attacked them with guns and tear gas. They made the ultimate sacrifice as protesters, objecting a law that would have demanded a very specific type of language education. But what started out as a very, very specific issue set in motion a global movement against apartheid. On June 4th, 1989, several weeks of student-led pro-democracy demonstrations in Beijing led and ended in tragic slaughter when thousands of Chinese troops began firing of crowds of student protesters. But those protesters, they also gave the ultimate sacrifice as they were fighting for democracy. And maybe if that's too far back in history and you're not quite sure about any of those movements, I'm almost sure and certain you know about nearly 3 weeks after a gunman walked into Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, that led to the tragic loss of 17 people. The conversation up to even today has not faded because the students of Stoneman Douglas have taken up the cause of gun control. Already they have lobbied state lawmakers in their capital in Tallahassee. They have spoken with federal representatives and even the president when this event initially occurred. And they have persuaded and influenced many companies to cut ties with the National Rifle Association, again, directly influencing policy. And lastly, just another example, but certainly not least, and I'm also almost certain you are aware of this, the Black Lives Matter movement began with 3 women in their late 20s and early 30s after the national tragedy and full view of the killing of Michael Brown, who was only 18. That led to many student protesters filling the streets of Ferguson, Missouri. And today, even after that incident, as a result of other horrific incidents, the Black Lives Matter movement is still fundamentally impacting the national conversation about racial bias, the use of excessive force by the police. Those are movements, just really some high-level examples, but to put an even finer point on the presence of young people and their voices around the country and the world, the past several years have seen a marked increase in young people getting involved specifically in politics and running for office. Specifically, the last American election cycle saw the number of millennials increase by over 300% in the United States Congress, with around 700 millennials running for state legislative seats and around the country. In the United States, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became the youngest woman elected to Congress at 29. Many other nations have members of parliament who are as young as 22. And in 2019, Representative Lauren Underwood became the youngest African-American woman to serve in the United States House of Representatives. At 34, Sanna Marin will be Finland's youngest prime minister ever and only the country's 3rd female prime minister. Mahari Black is a British member of parliament from Scotland, was elected at the age of 20 in 2015 making her the youngest member of parliament since 1667. Edison Broach, 29, is the youngest lawmaker in Panama's National Assembly. Those are just a few, literally a few of so many examples of young people that are in positions of leadership, having their voices heard. And my point is that me, you, us, young people, we are here. Our voices are loud, our voices are present and already elevated. But you're up next and you must keep it going. We must keep it going. I don't want you to mistake my reference to these young leaders and these powerful student-led movements as an indication that this journey is easy. And also not to be mistaken that there will not be those who will be working to muffle your voice. That is the exact opposite of what you can expect. But as someone who first ran for office again at 27, I can tell you with preparation, passion, and principled purpose, you can withstand any attack that comes your way. By your mere presence as part of today's Policy Pathways Summer Academy, you are already well on your way to getting prepared, but don't stop here. In order for you to develop true passion for policy matters, you need to understand who you are and what you care about. One of the greatest tragedies I see among young leaders, and quite frankly, even older leaders, is a failure to understand your own core principles, which lead them, unfortunately, to compromising their beliefs or falling for manipulation. This doesn't just hurt them as leaders, but it hurts those they vow to use their voices for. You see, the whole point in having an elevated voice is not for self. It is to ensure that the lens in which you see things, the perspectives you offer as an individual and or on behalf of an often forgotten group is part of the conversation. In addition to preparing for the elevation of your voice, I challenge each of you to show up. I know this sounds so simple and it sounds so basic, but I promise sometimes half the battle is just showing up, being fully present, and demonstrating your ability to be a trusted voice once in the room. As I started this conversation, the elevation of your voice is not because someone gives you permission, but because you make your own space for the perspectives you have to offer. And two final points I will make in closing in preparation for you to ensure you're ready for the full elevation of your voice. And hear me clearly, because this I have had to learn personally. Humble yourself. Humble yourself, especially before those who are passing the mantle to you. While present day challenges feel different to you, those who feel different to those who have come before us, they have often seen these challenges before. Take the time to learn from those that have made mistakes so you don't have to, that have learned lessons that have already been received and can be passed along. And form your thinking with a history of approaches that have been attempted and failed, so you too don't repeat them. Our elders wear their battle wounds. Try to understand those wounds and respect them along the way. The last point I want to make is that I need you to be careful not to categorize or harp on one type of elevation of one's voice as more powerful than another. I've made reference today to both students that started movements, some that have lost their life by protest, and some that have sought elected office. But there are many, many types of voices that I did not mention and will probably go unrecognized, but are equally behind the scenes making it happen. We don't have enough young people in bureaucratic, administrative, research, technological roles, the list goes on. And all of these positions have one thing in common. They outlive politicians. They outlive political administrations. And they are behind the scenes, truly impacting policy developments and the implementation of policy. So as you spend your time charting your journey, don't overlook your own personal platform and these critical roles that are often less glamorous. In closing, I will say, I have been especially privileged to have someone lift me up and encourage me along the way. My own political journey has included things that I could have never imagined, like passing Breonna's Law, making history here in Virginia, declaring racism as a public health crisis, allowing Virginia to be the first state in the South to do so, declaring access to water as a human right, banning the use of facial recognition technology, shepherding unprecedented dollars to our school systems. The list goes on. I have been so fortunate to do those things because I have prescribed to the same things I have mentioned to you. Today is the beginning of a tremendous journey and the preparation that you need to have your voice elevated. I'm so grateful to be able to address you today. I look forward to your success, and I can't wait for you to join alongside me in the fight as we try to improve our circumstances and the issues of importance around us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Delegate Air. You are indeed a trailblazer. Thank you for being a voice for the people, of the people, and by the people. Continue to stay the course, keep the faith, and dare to dream big. And thank you for that inspirational message. It was quite moving. Thank you very much.